virtual and we are going across the globe. So what is a way that we can connect with each other, and not just through text, but also actually seeing each other? And since my husband travels a lot, I have discovered how wonderful it is to be able to see each other. It really creates a different experience. So even if the audio may be a little weak, when we have both cameras, particularly with Eunice, who is in the Philippines, I asked her to stay with the webcam now, and when we do introductions, she will switch off the webcam, so we have the audio. But I thought that it was important. And Maria, if you can put your camera for a moment now, while we don't hear you, at least we can see you.
I'm going to try, but my internet seems to take me out of the session when I turn the camera on. I don't know why.
Okay, we tried, and if not, it doesn't work. Okay, so one of the things that, you know, the purpose of this is really to connect. And for those that, good morning, William. I see we have someone new joining. Hello, William, good morning. Audio, can you hear us? Hello, yes, William. I can hear you. Okay, good morning, good morning. So we are just starting, and what I was explaining is that what we will do in this hour is just have a casual meeting. There is no particular agenda except that we have a wonderful guest today, which is David Cooperrider. And for those that you know him, it will be great if we can have some exchange. I don't know, maybe you have some particular questions for him. I understand that you will be with us half an hour, or will you be the whole hour with us, David?
Probably about a half an hour. Yep.
Okay. Okay, let's not start at half hour yet. So we have
okay. Okay.
So what I was thinking is what we can do is just do a brief introduction. You say your name, where you're calling from, so that we have a span of geographies. And then if you have a particular question, start to think if you have one question that you want to share with David, try to do it very brief, because we want to go through these introductions in about 10 minutes. Okay. Is that okay? Well, so I am Isabel Rimanozzi, and I'm calling from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Roberta, do you want to go next?
Okay, I'm Roberta Baskin, and I'm joining all of you from Lake Jackson in Virginia. And it just makes my heart happy to see all of your beautiful faces and this AIM2Flourish community.
Okay, Ruben.
Hi, I'm Ruben Berga. I'm calling from the University of Guelph in Guelph, Ontario, Canada. I'm teaching CSR and really interested in knowing how to teach appreciative inquiry in 2 minutes.
Okay, that's a nice challenge. Sigrun, you're muted.
Yes, hi, I'm Sigrun Skudum, and I work for the Prime Secretariat at the UN Global Compact Office. I recognize a few of your faces and your names, and I'm happy to join this call from New York.
Nice to see you.
Thank you very much. Eunice. Take your webcam away for a moment, because I don't think we can do both. Okay, now we can see if we can hear you.
I'm Eunice Ariola. I'm calling from Manila, Philippines. Good evening here. It's 8 in the evening here.
Welcome very much. It's so nice to see you. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Claire Summer, and I am calling from beautiful Amherst, Massachusetts this morning.
Okay, David, where are you calling from?
David Cooperrider. Great to see everybody. We have a family kind of compound. We have 9 cabins on a lake in Spooner, Wisconsin, and it's a place I grew up. We have about 57 cousins and aunts and uncles, and it's where I got interested in large group dynamics, because we make all our decisions together in a group of 70 people, you know, big decisions like, should we paint the swing set by the lake? And but anyway, it's great to be with you.
Oh, that's a big community. Oh, Stacy?
Hi, my name's Stacy Chappell, and I'm calling from Northampton, Massachusetts. So Claire, we should connect.
Then you're nearby. Patty?
Hi, I'm Patty Raber. I'm a news story steward, and I'm calling from Potomac, Maryland.
Welcome, Patty.
Thank you.
Mary Grace?
I'm Mary Grace Neville, and I'm calling from outside of Austin, Texas. Hey, David, good to see you.
Mary Finney?
Hi, I'm Mary Finney, and I'm in Southern Ohio, Southeastern Ohio, in Athens. Good to see you.
Alec?
Hello, I'm Alec Worson. I'm at the Glasgow School for Business and Society, Glasgow Caledonian University in Scotland.
Oh. But you're wearing the Argentine colors.
Well, I mean, I am a rugby fan, rugby union fan, but yeah, multicultural.
I am from Argentina, that's why I see it. Esther?
Yes, hi. Esther Tuning from Northeastern University in the Cooperative Education Program in the School of Business in Boston, Massachusetts.
Oh, welcome, Esther.
Thank you.
George?
Yes, from Puebla in Mexico. Buenos dias. It's 7 o'clock this morning. We also have family here, David, celebrating birthdays and anniversaries. And we do make all those decisions together also. I know what you're saying. It's really fun with the grandchildren and everything. And I'm up first this morning to connect with you people.
Nice.
Great to see you.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you. And Maria, you're muted. There you go.
Hello, good morning to everyone. I'm sorry I cannot see you and hear you at the same time. I'm calling from Chile, Santiago, Chile. I'm probably the southernmost person in this conversation today. And I represent Sistema B, which is the organization that promotes systemic change towards a new economy and the big corporations in Latin America.
Nice to meet you, Maria. I look forward to connecting with you. You know, I'm originally from Argentina, your neighbor.
Ah, good.
Yeah.
Nice to meet all of you.
Well, this is wonderful to have this group here. And as you know, what we are trying, we had this idea of having like a big cafe or a living room where there is no particular agenda. However, we need a little bit of structure because we cannot talk in small groups. We have one voice at a time. So today, what I was thinking, normally what I would do is, what was the question that you had on your mind today when you were getting ready, getting your coffee or your soup, if it's the evening, before you logged in? Did you have something in your mind that you wanted to share or to ask? So that, keep that question or that comment. We will try to make time for that too, but let's use the first half hour that is starting now to make the most out of the time that we have David as a guest today, as a participant. So we heard from you, Ruben, a very short question, how to teach appreciative inquiry, but I invite you also to take a moment and think, what are other questions or comments that you would like to share with David in this opportunity? Okay, so David, if you know the answer for the first one, go for it.
All right, well, yeah, I think Roberta and Claire asked me to maybe share for 10 or 15 minutes or so to kind of set the stage with some discussion. And I think this might help get at the question about teaching appreciative inquiry. And I often think about what matters most with appreciative inquiry. And so the other day, I was interviewed by a magazine, and they wanted to know what was the high point moment of my career. And so I thought I might share that story with you and relate it to the full context of the world inquiry here of this Aim to Flourish activity. But first of all, I just want to say I'm just thrilled to just feel all the learning that's happening. I've been reviewing stories myself. Claire's been really helping me to understand all the different stages and steps in all of this. And I want to thank Claire for joining me yesterday. We had a group of about 50 people who are doing interviews right now. They're part of the Appreciative Inquiry Certificate Program. So, but let me put up, share my screen a little bit if I can, and see if that works.
In the meantime, let me welcome Alex Nuer, who is calling from Ghana, if I'm not mistaken by the background. Is that right, Alex?
Good morning, everybody. This time I'm from Wageningen. I'm back to campus in Wageningen.
Very much welcome.
Thank you.
So let me share the story, and then we'll leave time also for some discussion and so on. But I think it does relate to what I think is some of the core elements of this whole thing. By the way, I was rereading the other day Verena Kast's book called Inspiration, Joy, and Hope. I don't know if you've ever read that book, but it was like preceding the positive psychology movement. And in my view, it was just so profound about made in a courageous book, but really taking on the whole kind of deficit-based approach to therapy and so on. And she began to look at the transformational power of positive emotions like hope and inspiration and joy. So it's just something that I want to recommend to everybody. It's a fabulous little book. So a couple years ago, I had a chance to do 11 talks with Marty Seligman throughout Australia. And it was exciting because you could just feel the tectonic shift that was happening in the whole positive psychology field. You know, as we began to shift from seeing the world as just in deficit-based terms to starting to move up the ladder, you know, in terms of our topics. And, you know, he talked about the individual level. I talked about the large group systemic change level. And we had a wonderful discussion one evening raising the question, why is positive psychology being so tectonic right now? And by tectonic, I mean the research is just proliferating. My whole bookshelf is completely changed over the last 10 years. And all the language of grit and growth mindset and PERMA, you know, the whole kind of coming together of the whole of the positive psychology movement with this concept of what does it mean for full spectrum flourishing of the human being, like PERMA meaning positive emotion, engagement, high quality relationships, meaning and accomplishment. So as we were looking at each of our bookshelves and just seeing how prolific all of this was, it made me start raising the question, why is this so tectonic? And I realized in those discussions that it's not in all of the findings. That's not what's making this tectonic. It's not in our answers, but it's really in our questions. And that what this whole kind of revolution, positive revolution in research, I think recognizes is that we literally live in worlds that our questions create. And when the world changes its core question, you know, when it shifts, like we know that the media, for example, its core question is deficit-based, 9 to 1 in the negative direction and so on. So many professions are that way. When we talk about the legal professions or the you know, medical professions and you know, the professions of management and leadership, so often that the core question is what's broken, what's wrong, where does it need to be fixed, and so on. And so I think this is a big deal that the world is shifting its core question. And as we shift that question towards what gives life, it's not like what's positive or negative, but it's what gives life to living systems when they're most alive, most effective, most engaged. And this question around business as an agent of world benefit, it's not an answer, it's a question, and it's a sincere search. You know, what does it look like? Where is it happening? And so on. And so I learned something about the power of questions that I want to share the story. And this was one of my high point moments. And again, a magazine just did an interview asking me about it. So it came back and it flooded back. And it's in every cell of my body in terms of how important this is. So in this story, it's not in the business context. I'll bring it back to the business context. But this story unfolds like this. What happened was Dalai Lama was in Jerusalem, and he was with an investment banker, a supporter of his name was Richard Blum. He's the husband of Dianne Feinstein, one of our senators from California. And in that trip, Dalai Lama felt the tensions in the world in a way that he hadn't felt before, you know, and especially between the religions, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, all the different religions. And he turned to Richard and he said, my gosh, you know, if only the world's religious leaders could just talk to one another, the world would be a better place. You know, we don't talk. We don't know what's in each other's hearts. You know, the higher up we go in the religions, the less interaction there is between ourselves. Like, I've been on the same platform as the Pope, he said, but we've never spoken. We don't know what's in each other's hearts. It's been very formal. And so Richard said, well, what would you like to do, Dalai Lama? And Dalai Lama said, you know, I'd like to create a new form of dialogue where we can come together to know and to learn from the heart. And he often talks about the education of the heart. So, and so what happened was someone said to them later, well, Richard said, well, I'll support you. What would you like to do? And he said, I'd like to create this new way of coming together across the religions. And so Richard said, I'll support that. And then someone told them that they should use appreciative inquiry. So it was quite a surprise. You know, here I am, a management school professor, to get a call to facilitate the pilot test of all of this using appreciative inquiry. And what was happening is Dalai Lama was going to be in Washington in about 2 months, and they wanted to use that occasion to bring senior leaders from all the religions together. And it was going to be quite a gathering. You know, there were people that literally came together, like between the highest levels at the Vatican and the Orthodox Church, that hadn't spoken since the 1500s. And so that was kind of the drawing power of Dalai Lama, to be able to bring all those different groups into the room. And so as I'm preparing for this session, you know, you go back to some of the principles of appreciative inquiry, you know, that human systems become what they study. That we live, that we call the first one the constructionist principle, that to a much larger degree than we normally take into account, we construct our futures and our realities through the way we know the world. The way we know the world is fateful. Second principle is that principle of simultaneity, that, you know, oftentimes we think that inquiry comes first. You know, first we'll do a low morale survey in an organization, then later we will try and change. But the second principle of appreciative inquiry is the principle of simultaneity, that inquiry and change are a simultaneous moment, that the seeds of change are implicit in those very first questions we ask, because the questions we ask shape and help determine what we find, and what we find helps shape and determine how we talk with each other and how we envision and what we can see in the future and so on. And so anyway, with some of those principles in mind, I start thinking that the most important thing I'm going to do for this meeting is craft the opening 5 questions. And the way it would work is Dalai Lama would set the stage for about 20 minutes, sharing his vision, and then turn it over to us to get the appreciative inquiry process started, moving through discovery and dream and design and so on. And obviously I was nervous, you know, this was out of my league. I'm just a management school professor. And so I scrambled over those months to study the last 150 years of interfaith relationships. And it wasn't pretty, you know, like in the World Parliament of World Religions in 1895, it was the first time that all the religions came into one meeting room. And it was a exciting meeting. It was almost like a world fair kind of spirit, but then the meeting ended horribly. One group talking about, now we know how superior our religion is. Anyway, there were boos, and there was not another meeting like that for 100 years. So I'm thinking through the theory of change, you know, as I'm writing these questions. Okay, so a diagnostic theory of change, a deficit-based theory of change would say, let's start the meeting by drawing timelines, showing the most horrific conflicts between the religions in that person's part of the world. And I thought, no, you know, that's not going to help move this group together. And then I thought, you know, then I started writing some appreciative inquiry questions, and I got a little nervous because appreciative inquiry questions are very substantive. And I thought, boy, pretty soon we're just going to surface all of these theological and religious and spiritual differences. And so I started getting nervous, and I said, okay, maybe as a facilitator, I should just ask some icebreaker questions like, you know, tell the story of your first pet, your favorite dog or something. And I thought, no, you know, these are advanced people. You don't waste their time with some icebreaker questions. That appreciative inquiry is substantive, that human systems move in the direction of our questions. So I crafted about 5 questions, and here's what happened was, the meeting was going to start on, I think it was a Wednesday and a Thursday, and people were assembling on Tuesday night from all over the world, and they were coming at different times, so there was nothing formal that evening, just a room set up with snacks and food and gathering place. And the tension in the room was extraordinary, you know, I remember overhearing a Greek Orthodox bishop talking to, I think, a person from another Christian tradition. And he said, I don't know about a meeting like this. I don't know about a meeting like this. You know, what would St. Paul say about a meeting like this? And so I went to bed. It was a little sleepless, you know, thinking about the next day and the tensions that there were. So Dalai Lama speaks for about 20 minutes and then turns it over to me to get the dialogue started. And we had the questions, and people paired up in very diverse pairings, you know. So the Greek Orthodox bishop interviewed His Holiness Swami Chinananda from India, a beautiful man, 84 years old, a really white glowing beard, and just an amazing presence. And so I thought it was going well, and the energy and so on. And in fact, I probably shouldn't have written 5 questions. You know, those questions, by the way, took me 2 weeks to write 5 questions. It was like I was working on a poem or something, you know, where I'd write it and then throw it away and write it and kept and anyway. So I thought it was going well. And then I finally brought everybody back together. And then I thought, let's have, instead of people introducing themselves, which is often just a tape recording of what they've said before, let's have their partner, their diverse partner, introduce them, kind of like the first introduction to the group as a way to build trust. And so the first up was the Greek Orthodox bishop who was so nervous the night before. And he stood up, and he was standing next to His Holiness Swami Chinananda, and he started stuttering and stammering. And he said, and he looked nervous still. And I thought, well, why is he still so nervous? You know, and he says, I just want to say, I just want to say, and then he burst into this huge smile and put his hand on his shoulder and said, I just want to say, I love this man. This man has a good heart. And he went into the stories and the contact that happened. And later I wrote a paper called The Surprise of Friendship, that what this group needed, they did not need to come together to sign charters to stop the world's conflicts or save the earth and so on. What they needed was a way to come together to find the deepest and best, to have a union, a center-to-center union with the deepest and best in each other's traditions. And so anyway, I share that story with you because that went so well that then the next meeting was at the Carter Center with former President Carter because of his interest in conflict resolution. Then the group said, let's hold the next meeting in Jerusalem. And that meeting was profound, and they came together so well, and they said, you know, in the eyes of our children, what is, the religions together are not an image of peace and love and compassion, but so often the religions together, they're seen as a force for separation and bitterness and so on. But look at the respect in this room, they said. And one of them made the comment, they said, yeah, at the highest levels of the religions, you know, like let's take a magazine cover when Mandela and de Klerk, black and white, they grab each other's hands in the soccer stadium, crossing those boundaries, and the whole world echoes round that says that we can improve human relationships. Well, do we have a similar photo of like a Dalai Lama and a Pope hugging and embracing? We don't. There isn't an image like that, at least at that stage. So they decided then to go public, and it was dangerous. We had a lot of security forces and so on, but they went to the Dome they went to the Jewish Wall and prayed and meditated. Went to the Dome of the Rock and prayed and meditated. The emotions I felt then when we were in Christ's tomb and Dalai Lama led a meditation and a prayer. And I felt the love flowing in a horizontal way and respect in a way that I'd never felt. And I felt a sense of hope and way beyond what I'd ever experienced as a business school professor. It was unique. But then the group, like what groups often do, said, you know, we need to replicate this. We need to figure out ways to bring this kind of dialogue and inquiry process. So Bishop Swing, the Episcopal priest or Episcopal head of the Episcopal Church in California, and Charles Gibbs proposed that we create something like a United Religions, something almost like a UN, but not to, you know, like the UN isn't to create a single nation state, but it's a place to work out our complex interdependencies. And they said, you know, while the UN has been here 60 years or so, you know, 70 years, what have we done as religious leaders? Not only have we not talked, but so many of the armed conflicts, Harvard had just come out with a report that 87% of the armed conflicts in the world were not between nation states, but between groups of different religious and ethnic identities. And so anyway, they set sail on that activity. We held 5 appreciative inquiry summits at Stanford University over a period of 5 years. And what happened was that in terms of the results was that in 2000, no, actually it was in 2000, it was in 2005, there was a charter signing at Carnegie Hall. Today there's 699 centers doing this work around the world. You could go onto the website on the bottom, it's called URI, UnitedReligionsInitiative.org. It's a worldwide entity. We worked with Dee Hock, the founder of Visa, to create kind of this chaotic alliance, a self-organizing alliance. There's been 2 books written on it, The Birth of Global Community by Charles Gibbs and Sally Mahi. The more recent one, just last year, A Bishop's Quest by Bill Swing. It's an amazing book that covers it. In both those books, or in the first one of the authors predicts that this organization will someday receive a Nobel Peace Prize. You know, peace prizes usually go to individuals, so it's rare for an organization but that's what's emerging. It's now in 85 countries, 1.5 million people. So what's the insight, I think, for all of this? I think what we are realizing in the social construction of reality is that the human sciences are so much different than the physical sciences, and that the mere act of asking questions is a tremendously powerful act. I think about the time I spent on those 5 appreciative inquiry questions, and I think about what unfolded and what might have happened if I hadn't spent that disciplined, creative time on those questions. In marketing literature, they call it the mere measurement effect, the small measurement effect, that if you ask consumers a question, it'll shape their buying behavior. And so what I'm realizing is that there's nothing small about it. It is not a mere measurement effect. I want to call it the exponential inquiry effect. In physics, we have the Heisenberg principle that shows that just the mere observation of the particle begins to shape the dynamic of the particle. But I think in human systems, what we're talking about is an exponential inquiry effect, and that we literally live in worlds that our questions create. And so that's what I think about AIM2Flourish. I think it is a huge, huge intervention, inquiry and action, inquiry and change intervention. And it raises questions for me about some of the ways in which we can enhance the exponential inquiry effect, the generative theory effect, the ways in which we can open the world to new possibilities. Appreciative inquiry started originally not as an intervention or a method of organizational change, but as a theory building method, as a grounded theory building method. And it was a response in some ways to when one of the most important books I ever read was Ken Gergen's book called Toward Transformation and Social Knowledge. And in it, he takes on the whole human science and philosophical questions, kind of our exogenic view of knowledge, that knowledge is out there, independent of our consciousness of it. And then there was this endogenic, inside, that it's more subjective inside of the person. And then he proposed this sociogenic view of knowledge, that knowledge and the way we construe reality, what we take as true and good and beautiful and better, is something that's constructed by the human group through our language and through our stories and narratives and so on. And so he said, maybe the human sciences need a different kind of theory. In the past, we talk about the correspondence theory of truth, that the role of theory is to hold up a mirror to the world to help explain some phenomena. And he said, no, that because of asking questions, we change everything already, that maybe we need a different concept of theory. And he called that generative theory. Theory that opens the world to new possibilities, that challenges assumptions of the status quo, and opens up the capability to bring groups together, to dare to envision and dream and design the future. So when I read that, I realized that one of the things holding us back from generative theory was our deficit-based assumptions about the world. And so I love this quote by Einstein: there's only 2 ways to live your life, he said. One is as though nothing is a miracle, and the other is as if everything is a miracle. And when you think about how precious, human organizing is, the fact that we can communicate, the fact that we can come together to create, societies and, whole new ways of being and invent new forms of organizing and so on. I think That's the spirit that appreciative inquiry brings to this. That in some sense, that we want to understand this miracle of human existence and search for the true, the good, the better, the possible, and use that to help us anticipate the future. Anyway, this is Ken Gergen's concept of generative theory. This book, Realities and Relationships by Harvard Press, I think it's just one of the most important books I've ever read. So, you know, that's where I think these two principles are really important, that we live in worlds that our questions create. That's why I wanted to share that story of all the things that happened out of that dialogue with the Dalai Lama and that group. And this is, I think, the kind of a definition of appreciative inquiry. It's about the study of what gives life. You know, these are living systems, and so there's something that's giving them life when they are most at their flourishing or life-giving best. And it uses this knowledge to ignite the generative theoretical mind to discover, dream, and design beyond the possible, while elevating and conserving our rich heritage via the search for history as positive possibility. So it's not just the present that we can use appreciative inquiry. And just my final thought is, you know, this isn't a great picture, but the image that we've talked about with this world inquiry is kind of related to a story it's several thousand years old called Indra's Net. And what Indra's Net was is an old Buddhist story that kind of defined the nature of the universe. And it said years ago, before the internet, before all the interconnectivity, it said that the universe is a vast net. And at each intersection of the net is a jewel. And it's a sparkling, glistening jewel. But it's a sparkling, glistening reflection of all the myriad of other jewels. And we're, in other words, reverberating the best of the best of the best of the best. And that's how we construct and so on. So anyway, I love this quote by the poet Rilke: "Be patient now and try to love the questions and live the questions now. And then perhaps you will then gradually, without even knowing it, live along some distant day into the answer." So,
David, thank you so much. I was hesitating. I didn't want to interrupt you with this wonderful story because I was thinking, while this was not directly talking about what we are doing in AIM to Flourish, it was giving us the big picture, the vision, the dream that we are about. And sometimes we are so backed into the details, what we have to do, the to-do list to get the train running.
yeah.
Forget what is the destination? Why are we on this train anyway?
Yeah.
And I think that your story, for me at least, was a wonderful reminder of that is the cathedral that we are building together.
Yeah.
So I'm eager to open the space for our participants here in this room about questions or comments you may have. If you are muted, unmute yourself.
David, you can stop screen sharing now. And then
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, I see.
So we see everybody again. Okay, thank you.
I have a question for David, just in terms of any high point moment that you've heard from any of your students as you're teaching AIM to Flourish.
Yeah, no, the students are on fire, and they love. What I'm impressed with is when they come back to the classroom, often we'll form teams then, and some of the a lot of the interviews are done in teams, and then we'll have them take this information and build their vision of organizations of the future in kind of that generative theory building kind of way. And I have to say, they are more radical in their visions about what's possible and where business should head. That if I had started the course, you know, by sharing those visions and so on, they would have, you know, so what I see happen is that, you know, people need to see it to believe it, and they feel so privileged, and they come away, I think they come away taking in part of that interview, that they become in some sense what they're studying. So for me, the best stage of this is when we ask them to build their ideal visions of organizations of the future after they've heard all of their colleagues share their stories, and it's remarkable. So they really develop a sense of noble purpose, that business is a noble profession.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. I'm new. Hi, everyone, and hello, David.
Hi.
Thank you for your presentation. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I'm very new to AIM2Flourish. I'm going to implement it this fall. And I just wondered if you could share some of the mechanics that, like, how long is your semester? At what point do you, do you give them a dry run of AI, and do you do that in week one?
Right.
When is the interview bedded down? When, like, just the little
That's good. I can send you like the syllabus that I use.
Oh, that would be awesome.
You know, it's typically over maybe a 10 or 13 week period of time, but it can vary. Sometimes when we do it with workshops and executive workshops, we do it over different time frames, but I can send you the syllabus. What I typically do is I craft an interview guide in appreciative inquiry kind of style, and I'll send that to you as well. And in the very opening session, you know, I might talk for a few minutes about this changing world that we live in, and the possibilities of our time to, you know, completely eradicate extreme poverty, and then, you know, the possibilities of this massive transition to a bright green economy. Talk about kind of some big picture trends, and then I'll give them the interviews questions, 4 or 5 questions, and have them turn to the partner, and they will interview each other and come out with stories of things they've heard that already bring stories into the classroom of business and society kind of breakthroughs. And so they'll come up with stories like Tesla or whatever, and then I will do a little training on appreciative inquiry, and then ask them in phase 1 to start finding leads, you know, almost like a newspaper person finds leads before they decide on what the story is going to be. So if I form groups, then I have each person in the group come to the next session with the leads. And I give them some websites where they can start to find these leads, like CSR Wire is a good, you know, that's got a lot of quick leads that, you know, kind of sightings and so on. Or I'll send them now to our site and there's sightings there on the site. Where they're not full stories yet, but they're sightings, and people can say, oh gosh, that one sounds interesting. And then I'll ask them, you know, like let's say it's a group of 8, I'll ask each person to come in with 10 leads. So they have 80 leads. And then with those 80 leads, then I ask them to choose the 2 top priorities, first or second choice, and then to start setting up those interviews. In setting up the interviews, what I found is that the students can often get to higher levels than I could because they're a student, you know. So I tell them not to be shy about saying that you're a student. I'm a student, and we're taking part in a project where, you know, that's got partnerships around the world with GLRI, with, you know, the United Nations Prime. We're lifting up stories of business and society, business as an agent of world benefit, and you have something to teach me, and would you, CEO, sit down with my team? And I'm finding that the students have an incredible track record of getting to even higher levels than I could, you know, because they're students. And I think it appeals to the heart of a lot of leaders to pass their wisdom onto the students. And so, you know, I would say that they do the interviews usually 4 to 5 weeks after the start of the course. You know, it takes some time to get those interviews set up. And then there's like a couple week period where they do their interviews, and then we have them share all the stories, but then the teams develop their theory of business and society for the 21st century.
And Stacy, there's also in the professor resources on AIM2Flourish at the top right of the screen when you're on the homepage, you can find there's a letter of introduction that the students can use to the business leaders. We have 3 syllabi, how professors are using it, with a 4th on deck, and then David's is coming. So the resources really, there's a lot of information there.
Okay. What other questions?
David, it's Mary Grace. I'll ask a question about how are you getting students to link to the particular sustainability goals, the UN goals?
Yeah.
I have a much broader or more complex understanding of some goals than others. And so my challenge then becomes not saying to students, read this literally, but get deeper underneath what's happening with this objective.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think what I do is once they've started to line up their interviews, then I teach the goals. So it's more homegrown. They're finding something that really appeals to their heart in terms of what they choose. So it's not saying just do this through this lens. And then later we begin to look at all of those goals, and it's really clear that each one of the innovations zeroes in on one of them.
Do you then circle back as they develop their own visions of the future to see how that maps to the goals?
Yes, yeah. And in the paper, ask them to explain, the innovation through the lens of some of the goals. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good question. But yeah, I try and just really have them find the things that are just so, really most exciting to them without a lot of layer of teaching.
I have a question, David. When you have when you're with the students in this particular project, do you also share with them, or do you have a conversation about how we are changing actually the mental model about what business can look like? You get to that higher level, or do you stay more in the pragmatic, or this is what is happening, the experience?
No, get at that level. So you get into kind of the stakeholder theory of the firm, and you get into models like sustainable value, where, like Chris Laszlo's model on embedded sustainability, where you've got, good for the investors or shareholders, and then creating value for all stakeholders. And you show different models, and you take some of their innovations and place them on different parts of that kind of framework. So yeah, it's moving towards a real multi-stakeholder view. And then we start with that. Then we do teach, how do you help a company move in this direction? And what I focus in on is, again, the multi-stakeholder view, where we use appreciative inquiry planning processes to bring 500 people in a company together with their customers and communities and so on. So it moves nicely from this stakeholder theory of the firm to methods like large group planning, like future search and appreciative inquiry, where you have the external stakeholders in the room. So you leave them with some tools and thoughts about breaking down all the silos and ways to, bring people together. And then also start getting into some thinking in the different disciplines. So usually my classes have finance students, marketing students, strategy students, all different disciplines. And so we ask them to take their discipline and really, maybe when they shape their questions for that company, If it's a group that's really interested in marketing because that's their background and their discipline, then I have them really dig deep to find out what the marketing implications of that innovation might be and what it means for marketing and telling our story and so on.
I'd like to mention, David, that one of my students, after the interview, just got so involved with the CEO and the innovation, and the CEO with her that she ended up working there.
Yeah.
The result of that, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember in Cleveland, you said, this may happen.
Yes, it's happened to some of our students, like Bo Dane. He you know, he did his interview at Fairmount Minerals. It became ranked the #1 corporate citizen in the United States. And then he was working with us at the school for a while, but then he went and became the head of sustainability for that company. So, yeah. Yeah, a lot of good matchmaking and relationships.
Matchmaking and relationships, George. We just got Nicaragua as our newest country.
Oh, terrific with Felipe.
Claire.
I'm in Stacey's position in terms of being part of the journey, so to speak. Can you hear me?
A little bit louder.
Louder.
Yeah.
It's Alec Worston, GSBS here.
Okay, Alec.
My question is, in terms of the interview, excuse my naivety because I haven't started and I'm starting in the next academic year. I think it's fabulous. But I'm just thinking about mechanics, about meeting face to face, or, you know, how the conduct of the interview. That's one part of the question. And the second part of the question is, how do you, or do you, get involved, or do professors get involved in determining something that's maybe very much mainstream and all over the press, and, you know, competition for, if you like, the story or the innovation or the well-known organization? Are there any insights that anyone could, or you or anyone could share with me on these 2 points?
You know, I mean, I think this is a choice point. Sometimes when our students choose models to study or that are just out of the region, and they often do, then sometimes they'll do those interviews by Skype. But I have to say the impact is so much more powerful when they do it face to face. Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, makes sense.
Others?
Ruben, your question, how to teach appreciative inquiry, did you get enough answers?
In fact, yes, there's quite a bit, but something I'm reflecting on is that David focused on the impact this has on students. I'm curious as the impact it has on the people you're actually interviewing.
Yeah.
What's your feedback?
We really should track that. I mean, we've got anecdotal kind of things. And what happens is that I think it helps reinforce the innovation within the company. I think the leaders that have these experiences, they feel gifted. They feel gifted. They see the spirit in the eyes of that young person or student. They love telling their stories. They love sharing possibilities, and you know, I think that's just true of almost all of us. We love giving advice and helping the next generation. So I think there's a nice intergenerational magic that happens. I can send you a paper that I did some years ago where Chicago had all the public school students start interviewing all the elders, so to speak. It wasn't a business as an agent of world benefits. It was just, you know, interviewing them about life purpose. And it's got some incredible stories of what happened there. Like young Willie, he was like a junior in high school, and he was doing these appreciative interviews. And you know, he came from a very poor family, you know, and couldn't go to college. It was, you know, stuck in the inner city and a lot of, you know, difficult community dynamics and so on. But he was good, and he did an interview with an elderly woman on the North Shore who lived near Lincoln Park Zoo, and she was a philanthropist and things like that. After the interview, she said, "Willie, young man, your questions are so powerful. You know, they helped me think about what really matters, got me back in touch with my ideals for the good society. I hadn't thought about a lot of these things for years. You know, I told you the story of when Martin Luther King was marching on Cicero Avenue, and she said, thank you. This interview was a gift to help me get back in touch with my vision of a good society." And then she said, "Willie, you know, you're so gifted, you must be planning to go to college." And he said to her, to, you know, this 84-year-old woman, he said, "No, ma'am, I'm not going to be able to go to college. I come from a very poor family, 8 brothers and sisters. I'm the youngest one, and none of them were able to go to college." And she turned to him and she said, "Well, Willie, you've given me such a gift today." She said, "Willie, if you could go to college, where would you go?" And he said, "Oh, I've dreamed about it all my life. I would love to go to University of Illinois and Champaign-Urbana, Big Ten University." And then she says, "Willie," and she looked him straight in the eye, "I'll pay for all 4 years of your college." And that story was on the cover of the Chicago Tribune the next week, which gave birth to a project called Imagine Chicago. And there's a book written on it now of the power of these intergenerational interviews, that inquiry and change can be a simultaneous moment. Yeah.
So that gave me an idea, Ruben. What if we started research with the companies our students are interviewing, and then a group of us come together and we take a sample of those that want to participate and provide some information, and then we can do a survey, something that captures what is the difference that this interview made in the life and the awareness or whatever ripple effect this can cause, because we are tracking what the students are doing and how it impacts the students, and there is already something going on. Maybe we track also on that other side of the impact.
That'd be a great idea. Great
So
idea.
let's connect offline, and we can brainstorm a little bit more and craft an invitation for everybody who wants to participate.
I just wanted to ask if I could ask David. I'm just thinking about the unpacking of such a rich experience, and how we know that experiential learning plants seeds that stay and mature over a long period of time.
Yeah.
But with my students that are online and in Southeast Ohio or all over Ohio, I say to them, you know, I wish I could be in the room with you doing the interview. And I said, if I could be a fly on the wall, I would just love to take it in. But then I say to them, you know, as you return from your interview and you're driving back home or whatever, or whenever you can, if you feel like it, call me.
Okay.
Tell me.
Wow.
And so what I realized from them calling me from the road,
wow,
is that it's a lot like the Greek Orthodox priest, Satchidananda. He said, "I love them. I love them."
This man.
There's something that's being expressed there, and I don't want them to lose that. You know, I don't think if they told it to anyone, maybe we can ask our students to, even into a tape recorder for themselves, record their experience,
right?
So that they can hear it deeply.
Yeah.
It's and then
this
also.
Is great. Yeah, this is great, and both you and Isabel and the whole idea of somehow tracking the impact both ways, I think is really good. I mean, I'd love to see it tracked physiologically too. I don't know if there's some tools where you can look at, like HeartMath does, the heart rate variability or whatever. I don't know, if there's simple tools like that, but I do know that people remember these interviews for years. You know, I met with someone from Verizon who 20 years ago, did an appreciative inquiry interview with someone, and he could remember almost every word in that interview. That's, you know, and I remember one that I did with Dr. Bernard Lown years ago when I was studying his leadership to create international physicians for prevention of nuclear war. He's at Harvard, and he within 5 years, he had 500,000 physicians as part of this effort, and it was incredible. And I remember in that interview him pounding the table at one point, and my video camera fell off the desk onto the ground, so I don't have the video, but I remember almost every, you know, it was so powerful. So, and I know that part of it is a cellular memory, you know, it's in me now.
So we have hit the hour mark, and that was a wonderful hour. Thank you so much, everybody. I was thinking, if each one of us can say one word, not a phrase, just one word to share as a closing, so we hear everybody's voice. And I will call you out just so that we keep the flow going. My word is heart. Roberta?
Abundance.
Ruben?
Transformational.
Claire?
Family.
Mary? Finny?
Soul.
Mary Grace?
The question.
Daisy?
Excited.
Alex?
Appreciation.
Oh, Alec with a C?
Inspiring.
William?
Enlightening.
George?
Gratitude.
Esther?
Reflective.
Eunice? Eunice? Cannot hear. Type it into the chat. We cannot hear you.
Joy.
Joy. Thank you. Patty?
Gross.
Maria? You're muted.
Muchas gracias.
And David?
Friendship, surprise of friendship.
Thank you so much, everybody, for this gift that we have given to each other. Have a blessed day and a blessed evening. See you next month.
Thank you.
Isabel and everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye now.
Mhm.